Hi, welcome. I'm Dr. Micah Hamilton, CEO and co-founder of Huron Zoe Corporation, and we're continuing our epigenetic performance series discussions. And I have now the long version, the deep dive with Kim West, the sleep lady. And if you watch the other the little short clip that we did, you'll see how powerful Kim's practical common sense tips are to really create a beautiful sleep process for your child. And so I want to tell you a little bit about Kim, and I'm going to ask her to go more into detail about what she's created over the years. But she is an author, a best-selling author of an amazing book. Kim, can you hold the book up so that they can see it? Oh, it's a phenomenal book, The Sleep Lady's Good Night Sleep Tight book. And she's also got workbooks that go with that. She's been on so many amazing shows, Dr. Phil. I mean, I guess that's probably not the most important part, because I know you're here to help everybody whose children aren't sleeping at this time. So maybe we'll skip all of those accolades, but know that she's sold over 135,000 books, and she has coaches in so many countries around the world. And so, Kim, how about you go ahead, dive us into your ecosystem to just tell us about, what you've created. Now, I do want to share that Kim's created a new paradigm around creating a secure emotional attachment with children through this sleep process, because we don't have to let them cry it out. And in fact, she's adamantly opposed to that process. And so, Kim, welcome, and thank you so much for sharing the things that you've developed over so many years, 27 years as a family licensed social worker. Mm-hmm. Kim, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for having me. I just briefly, for parents to understand, I started all of this. At first, I had my family therapy practice, and then I got pregnant with my first child, and I watched my brother and his family suffer. And I thought, what? Sleep could be a problem? Don't you just lie down and go to sleep? And won't that be the same for the babies? And so I got to have my own experience, as we all do when we have children. And I kind of went against the popular advice of the time, which was, even though there was still a lot of attachment parenting messaging, the way to get your child to supposedly go to sleep was to leave them to cry it out. And that you could go in and check on them in increments, but I really found that upsetting, and I had a hard time doing it. And so I thought, there's got to be a different way to do this. And so I experimented on my older child. Luckily, she's turned out okay at 25, and started to help my friends and families. And then had a second child who was, had really bad silent reflux, is one of these alert personalities I talk about still at 22 in my book, and really helped me to be a better parent and to be a better sleep lady. And so once I got her sleeping through the night, I thought, you know what, I might be onto something here. Cool. And started helping everybody, because my mission is that I want parents to know that, number one, there's quality advice and support and help out there. And number two, that it's not cry it out or suffer for months or years in sleeplessness, that there can be options, gentler options in getting your child to sleep. So that's always been my big, mission. And I try to also help families in every different, financial background that they have. So I have thousands of free articles on my blog on sleeplady.com. I also, although I know a lot of libraries are closed right now, I tell every parent that if my book is not in your library, email me your address of the library, and I will mail it to their library.
Wonderful.
So they can get it for free. And then, of course, you can get my book online and in audio now too, and digitally.
Perfect.
And my e-course is available now. I'm doing this for all the families that are stuck at home with sleepless children for $9.99. So
that's wonderful.
And then, of course, you can work with one of my gentle sleep coaches. So I started training families all over, or coaches all over the world 10 years ago to be gentle sleep coaches, because I just literally could not help everybody by myself. And I want that mission out there in the world, that there are gentler options without leaving your child to cry it out alone.
Oh, I love that so much, because, we do recognize the transgenerational epigenetic passing of that process in those who are really impacted by it. And
Yeah.
so I love what you've created. And I love that you're taking the time to really help parents right now in this interesting situation where we have different schedules, and everything seems to be disrupted, including sleep, adults and children. So let's dive into your process around really helping parents who have children who are not sleeping.
Yeah.
What are the most important things?
Yeah. So I think that starting with, why is your child not sleeping? Right? Just briefly, because sometimes it feels mysterious. Like, what in the world why is my child just not lying down into their crib or bed and going to sleep? Everybody, gets tired and wants that sleep. So couple of reasons. One is, and this one is not necessarily logical, but putting yourself to sleep is a learned skill, right? Again, I always think to tell parents this. So think back, particularly if you're a woman before pregnancy, and you had to go, to an early meeting the next day, or get on an early flight. And so you tried to go to bed earlier, and maybe you took a nice, warm shower or a bath, or you did some reading, but then you had to do something to turn off your mind, right? And so you really are doing something to help you go to sleep.
Right.
So what ends up happening oftentimes with our babies and children is that when they're little, when they're newborns, we are the person that helps put them to sleep, right? They don't even have their internal clock developed yet until about 4 months of age. And so we are holding, rocking, feeding, soothing them to sleep, and often back to sleep. But then what happens, not always, but often, at least for 30% of parents, is we continue that, right? We continue to put our child to sleep and not give them that room and that space to learn how to do it for themselves. So the common ones are breastfeeding and bottle feeding to sleep, rocking, holding, bouncing, laying down with them if they're in beds to sleep. Sometimes, touching, patting, soothe, in these ways to sleep. So of course, if your child, has learned from you, the parent, that the way I go to sleep is mommy or daddy hold me to sleep, then of course they're going to be, you put them down into their crib or bed, and then you kind of sneak out of the room, and then they go through those normal sleep cycles. They wake up and they say, what? How did I get in here? I don't know how to put myself to sleep. You have to come back in and do that thing you do, right? Whatever, feeding, walking, rocking, bouncing, whatever those things are. So you find yourself doing that throughout the night and for naps. So it is a learned skill, and it is one of our many parenting tasks to help teach our children. The other common reason that, again, I don't think is logical, is that lots of times we are practicing sort of sleep myths. In other words, oh, if I take away my baby or toddler's naps, they'll sleep better at night. Or I'm going to put them to bed much later, and that way they'll sleep in later. And it's actually going to give you the opposite results, right? So if, sleep begets sleep, as Dr. Weisbluth says, if we deprive our babies of sleep during the day, it will make it harder for them to go to sleep at night. So most of us know that melatonin is the drowsy making hormone that's secreted after about 4 months of age, when we have light or darkness, right? So when the room becomes dark, then the body sees that along with a soothing routine, right? So those are the two factors that trigger melatonin secretion. Same for us too, by the way, as adults. And then the body can slow down, start to get ready for sleep. If the body doesn't see those signs and the lights are on and things are going and it's late and we're not creating that soothing routine, then the body will secrete alerting hormones, making it harder to go to sleep and stay asleep. And then they'll wake up more sleep deprived, making it harder to go take a nap, right? So it's this sort of downward spiral, which is why we really actually want to increase the daytime sleep and have an early enough bedtime. And then another factor to know that can affect sleep is, I've already listed sort of what I would call behavioral reasons for our children not going to sleep and sleeping through the night. The other one is potential underlying medical conditions. So the common ones are untreated reflux, asthma. Oftentimes the medication used to treat asthma can disrupt sleep, and then restless leg syndrome and obstructive sleep apnea. So obstructive sleep apnea, I always like to share the top three signs of obstructive sleep apnea with our children. So the first one is snoring or mouth breathing. Our children really should not be snoring. And mouth breathing, you might even see it during the day when they're quiet in play and they have the little O mouth. And then the other one is sweating during sleep. You'll see a lot of it on the head in particular. And then the third symptom is restless sleeping. Like if they're in a bed, their pillows and sheets and blankets end up on the floor. They're all over the place. Or if when you bring them into your bed, they're like spinning around in your bed and kicking you and you can't get any sleep. So those are important things to know, because if we're going to address a sleep concern behaviorally, but there's underlying medical conditions, then we want to make sure to address both of them too.
Oh, sure. And you mentioned mouth breathing, and one of the most significant things about mouth breathing is that we send out too much carbon dioxide, and so the hemoglobin isn't able to release the oxygen in really beautiful, quantities to the tissue, to the muscles, to the brain. And so then there's increased fatigue also, because the brain never really got in its restorative, restful place. And so the mouth breathing is one of the number one things that we also look at. So talk about, please, the sensory nature. You call them alert children. Is that?
Yeah.
I love that. I love that you use that term as opposed to calling them whatever we've been calling them in the medical establishment, hyperactive, overactive, all that crazy stuff. Alert children.
And I'm not, definitely. And it's funny because a lot of parents say to me, okay, Kim, if you think my child is alert, does that mean they're going to end up with ADD or ADHD? And I have not found that. I mean, I just named it that. And these are some of the characteristics I've seen in these children in my work over the 25 years that I've been helping babies and children sleep. And here they are. The first is when you bring them home from the hospital, or even sometimes the nurses will say to you in the hospital, like, whoa, good luck with this one, right? This baby is like this, right?
Yeah.
And really taking in the world. And so they sometimes appear like they're older than they are too. And you'll see them very, like when they go to the grocery store with you, they are checking everybody out. There's also a link to slightly higher IQ with these alert babies. I always say, I don't know if they're going to be brilliant, but sharper than the average pencil in the box, as they say. Which, by the way, also there is a link to higher IQ kids needing more sleep. So a lot of times people will say, oh, well, if they're really smart, they need less sleep. That's actually not true. Okay. They tend to need more sleep. The other thing is they tend to reach physical milestones early. So if you see a 9-month-old walking, I usually think to myself, I bet you they have more disturbed sleep. And the other thing about their personality, because they're so, like, as I said earlier, their filter to the world is open much wider. It's harder to read their sleepy cues because they're so engaged in the world.
Mhm.
And as they get older, they sort of give this message that I know what I want when I want it, and I'm willing to hold out until I get it. So these are kids are a little harder to parent, um, but and they really keep you on your toes. You really have to be consistent with them. I also find that they, even more than the average, need a soothing routine. They may need one longer than the average bear, and they tend to not be maybe as flexible about where and when they sleep. They sort of like, no, I need my nap in my room and dark and quiet and my ritual before. They're not going to like sleep in a stroller in a bowling alley or in the grocery store as easily as other kids. But they will sleep and they can learn the skill. So don't think like, oh no, that's my child. Does that mean I'm like doomed for sleeplessness forever? No, definitely not. 80% of my families I worked with have alert kids and they're all sleeping well now.
Oh, I love that. And so would you say then much of it is really about the structure that you put around it and staying consistent with that structure? I
Yeah.
would say the word discipline, but people don't really get that word in the way of structure.
Yeah, no,
Timing.
consistent. Yeah, exactly. That you have to create so you create a schedule. So I encourage families to keep a sleep log while either before and definitely during sleep coaching, so that you can start to get an idea of when does my child seem to get tired at
Mm,
bedtime. So most of us are putting our children to bed too late, right? And I'm talking about kids 6 and under.
okay.
Usually it's about somewhere between 7 and 8 p.m. So that means, like, when you're making dinner or cleaning up dinner, I would just be looking at how they seem and
Mhm.
go ahead and create that environment so that you're then going up or going into the sleep area of the home and having a soothing routine, washing up, brushing teeth, looking at stories, or if there's a feeding for a young child, then you're doing that in the room with dimmer lights,
Mhm.
helping to just trigger that for the child. And then during the day that we should nap around the same time. So it's sort of like breakfast, morning nap, lunch, afternoon nap, maybe snack, play, dinner, bed,
Mhm.
right? And that we're consistent in keeping to that framework. And then once we start sleep coaching, we have to be we have to be consistent, because this is the secret to sleep coaching. So I could talk a little bit about that if you think that would be helpful.
That would be great because it's interesting. I think to look at now that we're at home in our homes and we're not as active.
Mhm.
It's interesting to look at the schedules to ensure that the schedules stay as consistent with the natural rhythms of the human, so the circadian rhythms.
Yeah.
And so, if you would, what are your recommendations on that stable schedule?
Well, so that we all are supposed to go to bed around the same time, wake up around the same time, not vary it by more than an hour. And this is even more important for our children.
Okay.
Sleep is essential for learning, mood stabilization, and our general health. So really now is the time to hunker down into our schedules,
Mhm.
and even maybe equally as important, to remember is that routines which happen around sleep really help our children feel safe and
Mhm.
because they know what's going to happen next. Imagine, for a baby, they don't know what's going to happen next. But then if our children start to learn rather early on, like, oh, we go into the room and mommy and daddy, pull down the shade and we have a quiet, whatever it is, a book, a song, a feeding, then it's like, I know what's going to happen next is I'm going to go to sleep.
Mhm.
And then I wake up and my mom and dad are there or my parents are there. And it brings like a nice soothing routine to the day and to their world.
Oh, I love that. And it feels so peaceful to me, Kim, the way you're describing that. I
Yeah.
love stability and consistency for them, and that love and nurturing. Let's talk about myths, right? I know that there are so many sleep myths for babies out there. What are the top sleep myths? Let's debunk them.
Yeah. I think the first one was one that I was saying before. I'll put my baby to bed later and they'll sleep longer and later. And really, unfortunately, that doesn't start happening, like go to bed later, sleep in, until a child's about 7 or 8 years of age.
Okay.
Before that, it really should be, an early enough bedtime. And usually it's between 7 and 8 p.m. A lot of families will say to me, well, we live in a part in the world where we all stay out late and we bring our kids and we want them to be able to go to bed at 9 p.m. and sleep in till 8 a.m., particularly on Saturdays and Sundays. And yeah, who doesn't want that? But when our children are under 7 or 8, it can't happen for them. It's just not how their internal clocks work. And so we really want them to get enough sleep and around the same times. So I think that's a big myth. The other one is, I think, unrealistic expectations of a newborn. That there are some, guidelines or advice being given that you should let your 6-week-old cry it out for as long as it takes, and they shouldn't need a feeding during the night. Or these myths of, if they're a certain weight, then this, and if they're on formula, then that. Like, honestly, I think we really have to look at our baby and go with what feels right in our heart and our intuition, and know that you can't apply rules like that, right, to
And I have to tell you that for me, what you've just said is the most stunning part of all of this. We are all unique. We're all unique, and we all develop patterns and behaviors and ways of being that are so unique. And so as parents, if we're really aware, because we're present with what's happening in that baby's life, we do see patterns that give us an indication of what's best for them. And I think the number one thing for me is that level of awareness and paying attention to it, because we do intuitively know, what's going on with them when we're paying attention, and how to gently guide them through that intuitive knowing.
Yeah, I think it's really hard right now. I think it's hard to be a parent now because, and interestingly enough, maybe us all being at home will kind of shut out some of that noise, of what to do and what are other people doing and what they're doing, what I see on Instagram versus what's happening in my life, so that we really do go back to our intuition. Because so often in the years that I've been helping families, I've asked parents, like, well, what does your gut say? And they have said to me, I don't know, Kim. I'm so inundated and overwhelmed by the information that I'm being given that I am immobilized. And so that's when I'll really say, you know what, then can you just stop researching? Stop looking at all of that on social media and Google, and let's just go inward and watch, and let's really get to know your child.
Thank you so much, because this is the thing I tell people. When we're still and we're really aware of what's going on within us and the babies that we bring into this experience, we don't need a manual. We know intuitively what to do. And by us sending all of our inner knowing outside of us to somebody else's expertise or opinion, we basically give away that human blueprint that we have inside of us, because we are the authorities when we're still enough to know and we're paying attention to what our little darling, needs, right?
And sometimes, not to make any parent feel badly who isn't sure, what to do, because let's face it, when you're sleep deprived, it's hard to see clearly anything.
For
Right.
sure. Yep. Yep.
Never is this about IQ, right? All these parents are smart.
Sure.
They're feel stuck. And so I think it's okay to also say, can you please tell me what to do? Right.
Sure.
And know that in that process of sleep coaching your child, you are learning so much about your child, and you're having faith that your child can do it and that you can do it as their parent. And it really strengthens that connection, and I think empowers you as a parent. And one of the things I love about telling a family, I want you to stay with your child as they're learning to put themselves to sleep, and offer physical and verbal reassurance as they're learning, is that they learn so much about their child. They also learn about themselves. Like, this is hard, and I feel impatient, and I want to scream too, or I want to leave, or I want someone else to come help me. All of those things are still good learning. And
Right.
then what we learn about our children is like, oh, look at that. She likes to rub the sheet, or hum, or lift her little legs up and plop them down, or pull on his ear, or twirl his hair. And we don't get to learn that when we're not right there watching.
Right.
And it can be just a beautiful process in that regard.
One of the things that I think was so important that you just said was if the parents are sleep deprived. I had lots of young ones very close together, and I don't recall most of the 5 years because of sleep deprivation.
Yeah.
And so I'm glad that your coaches and that your process also works with the parent to ensure that that parent is getting ideal sleep, so that they're able to have the full bandwidth to be present with the child to help the child sleep. If the parent's not sleeping, how's the child going to have?
Well, and or I would say that the parent, once the child's sleeping through the night, then the parents get to sleep through the night. It usually takes them a little longer, by the way, because they're sort of hardwired to wake up, waiting for the child to get up. But then once everyone's sleeping, this saves marriages.
Yes.
And this allows parents to be the parent that they want to be. Not irritable and, short-tempered and frustrated and not enjoying the parenting role and part of their life. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. I so love that. So, okay, we know that your book and your coaching processes are highly successful. We know you have blogs. For people to really benefit from your process, your website has everything, right?
Yep.
And
I have a blog. You can check out my books. They're still shipping on Amazon and Book Depository. And I have lowered the price of my e-course. It's only $9.99. It will kind of walk you through how to create a sleep plan. There's also a private Facebook group where one of my gentle sleep coaches will answer your questions. And there's handouts and everything you need to create a sleep plan and get started and getting your child and family sleeping through the night.
Oh, that's so wonderful. I am so grateful that you spent the time today and that you have the resources. I'll put all of the resources in the notes, and reach out to Kim. I mean, her work has changed so many lives. And I tell you, I had my kids way ago, but I wish that I had access to you then, because I really was in a sleep deprived state for so long. And my children, I think, didn't have optimal sleep. They do now, thank heavens, but I would have loved to.
Just like a little message of hope for families. I always tell them that I will hold the light at the end of the tunnel for you, because I know that your child can learn this and that you can do this. And I think we can look at this opportunity as we have time at home to focus on this now.
Yeah.
We don't have to worry about, oh, I got a, big meeting, I have a trip, or at daycare, my child never sleeps. So how will I get them good naps to sleep coach at night? Now is our opportunity. And your opportunity. And so I want to offer that support and positive words
Yeah,
of
thank you.
that there
For
is.
sure. Thank you for that encouragement, because it is wonderful to know that there is a light there, and that everybody can have ideal sleep. I love that. Thank you so much, Kim West, the sleep lady. We look forward to all of the new things that you're creating to help people enjoy a much more beautiful existence.
Yes.
Thanks, Kim. See you soon.
Thank you.
Bye now.